Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, we have a great show for you today. Wasn't quite as busy in the system yesterday as both Oklahoma City and Great Lakes had their games canceled due to weather. Not canceled, more like postponed. Oklahoma City, they're going to make up that game on Sunday in a doubleheader, and Great Lakes is making up that game today with a doubleheader of their own. But there still was a lot of great action. Tulsa, they had a doubleheader yesterday because they had a game postponed due to weather the day before. And then Rancho, they finished off the night playing at Inland. We have a lot of great video of their game. And then obviously LA had the big win, a fun win, put the cherry on top by beating the Cardinals as the Dodgers came back home. So it was a good day in the system. We have a lot to get to. But hey, before we get into all that, just a reminder, if you'd like to help Dodgers Daily grow by donating, we have a link in the description. All you got to do is click. It'll take you right to where you need to go to help Dodgers Daily by donating. Also, if you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily, become a subscriber. After you subscribe, click that notification bell. That way, every time Dodgers Daily releases a new video, you'll be notified. Dodgers Daily will keep growing, and we can keep doing what we love to do, which is providing videos and content like this in the future. Okay, it was a good game last night. Kind of one of those games that just started making you feel good about things again. Got everything healthy. The Dodgers got off to a good start, and they did not let up. You got off the good start, you had the good middle, and then you also had the good end, so it was a good day. Dustin May looked good on the mound, so we're going to get into all of that and talk about the Dodgers. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it, and let's talk Dodgers baseball. The Dodgers got off to a good start in the first inning. Mookie Betts, like he needs to do, was the catalyst. He hit a home run. Then the Dodgers really played good offense after that. You had a single from Freddie-Freeman. You had, imagine this, a walk from maxmuncy. So how about that formula? Mookie Betts hits a home run. Freddie-Freeman singles. Maxmuncy walks. And then, hey, how about Jason Hayward? He had a great day yesterday. Played great defense, had 2 hits. He singled in Freddie-Freeman, and so the Dodgers scored 2 early runs, and I talk about that all the time. Get that lid off. Hey, you got the lid off in a great way. Think about this. Mookie Betts got his mojo going. All right, Freddie-Freeman got a single. Maxmuncy walked. Jason Hayward singled. So you're talking about almost half of your lineup that helped produce runs in the first inning. And, typically speaking, like I said, the formula doesn't always work, but when you can get a lot of your guys involved in the offense early, you can score early, get a lead, get everybody feeling good about that night. It typically speaking works out well for you in the long run, and it certainly did as the Dodgers beat the Cardinals last night 7-3. Okay, so it was a good game, coming back home off the 2 duds at the end of the road trip at Pittsburgh, so it was kind of a feel-good type of game. Now, it wasn't perfect, and there still are some issues that are pretty glaring that we're going to cover in this podcast. But again, anytime you can come home, just look at the Cardinals, for instance. My number one mentor, I talk about him all the time, Eddie Daves, who was a number 1 draft pick in 1972. He played in the Cardinal system in the 70s and then early 80s. He played behind Ted Simmons, and that's why you probably haven't ever heard of Eddie Daves, because he never could make it past Ted Simmons and make it to the major leagues, but he made it all the way to AAA baseball. Huge Cardinals fan. He goes back 2 or 3 times a year. He absolutely loves the Cardinals. He loves, everything that they taught him during that time period as far as the culture. And to be honest with you, the culture that the Cardinals had in the late 70s and 80s, when they were, so good, and they had, that of course they were a little bit different than the Dodgers in the sense that they liked, to run, and they had a lot of fast guys, whereas the Dodgers like to slug a little bit more. But it was very similar in the sense that they had very similar cultures. There were 2 phrases that the Cardinals in the 70s and 80s, they might still do this, but I know they did it in the 70s and 80s. They would never allow anybody in the organization to say, "Come on," or "let's go." And the reason is, if you think about those two quotes, or those, if you think about those 2 sayings, typically speaking, they're said in a negative connotation, kind of like, "come on," or "hey, let's go," that kind of thing. They would not allow those 2 phrases in the organization. It was, it was a situation to where if you did not have something constructive to say, you didn't say it at all. Everything was by first name. It's just very similar. I was talking to Jesse Guffey, the athletic trainer of the year for the Tulsa Drillers, and he was mentioning that, of all of his interactions, and he's seen other organizations as well, and he says it's not like this everywhere, but in the Dodgers organization, he has never seen a negative interaction with with somebody from the Dodgers and anyone else, out in the world, whether it be a hotel manager or somebody at a restaurant or whatever. He's never seen a negative reaction. So from that perspective, I think of Eddie every time because, that culture that the St. Louis Cardinals had built was just so strong. It's very similar to what the Dodgers have now. And I say that to say, hey, St. Louis Cardinals, man, they have a birthright to be good in baseball. They have some of the best fans, if not the best baseball fans. I can tell you right now, I've been to St. Louis many different times, and, like I said, I talk to Eddie all the time. St. Louis baseball fans are just absolutely awesome baseball fans, okay? It's 10-17, that's what they are right now. It could have been a lot, for as many frustrations as we've had, and the Dodgers have great fans too. Most of the Dodgers fans realize, hey, it's baseball, let it play out. The Dodgers, like I said, they've kept their head above water. They have fought, they have scratched, they have clawed, and they have kept themselves right there to where, hey, they can get all the pieces together. I talk about it, and then kind of get that engine revved up and get all 8 cylinders working as everybody gets back healthy. We saw Will Smith get back into the lineup last night. Then obviously maxmuncy as well off the paternity list. Of course, JD Martinez got put on the IL, so that's a little bit disappointing. Okay, so you still don't have all your pieces together. Tony Gonsolin, he's still basically in rehab mode, but in a major league setting. So you still don't have all your pieces together. But the Dodgers, I'll tell you what, for all of the duds that they put out there, they put out 2 or 3 duds, and we're going to get into some of the offense that they don't score in games that they lose, and some of the numbers there. But you got to give the Dodgers credit, and as a Dodgers fan, you have to be super, I don't know, you have to have a super amount of respect for the grit that this team has showed, for the simple fact that they have dealt with a whole lot of moving pieces. They've kept their head above water, and they are now 14-13. Okay, now at the very start, let me give you something exciting right here, okay? You've got the St. Louis Cardinals the next 2 days. You need to win those 2 games, okay? So here's kind of what teams do in a long season. It reminds me of like a basketball game or a football game. Whenever you take the whole game, what you do is you break it down into chunks. So let's say a basketball team's down 15 points in a basketball game. So what a coach will say is he'll call a timeout and he'll go, hey guys, let's get it under 10 by the 8-minute mark. And then they'll, at the 8-minute mark, they'll have a timeout. Then they'll go, okay, well, it's a 9-point game. Let's get it under 5 by the 4-minute mark. And then they'll have another timeout. And then they'll say, let's get it down to a 1-possession game by the 2-minute mark so we don't have to foul. They'll chunk it that way, and then they'll try to meet those benchmarks as you go. So within a baseball season, a team will kind of sit down and they'll go, okay, look at this stretch we have coming. Hey, we have a 10-game stretch here where we could go 7-3. And if we go 7-3, that gives us a little bit of a bumper. It gives us some cushion, and it puts us in a good position. So this is one of those chunks of the season where I am very excited about, because the Dodgers can and probably should win the next 2 games against the Cardinals. I hope I didn't jinx that. So let's say that you do that. Now you're 16-13, okay? You've given yourself some buffer above that 500 mark. You're in good position in the National League West. Then you play the Phillies at home, who are right around 500. They've kind of had the exact same kind of season that you have. Let's say you win 2 out of 3 of those. So now you've won 5 out of 6. Okay, so that would put you at 18-14, and then you go to San Diego. Wow, I am super pumped about that stretch right there. That's how I've chunked it in my mind. Hey, let's get some momentum. Let's win these last 2 games against the Cardinals. Let's go win 2 out of 3, if not sweep the Phillies at home in the next series, and let's roll into San Diego with a hell of a lot of momentum, and let's go kick their ass. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I'm pretty excited about that. So That's kind of how I chunk a baseball season. That's how, each and every day you wake up. Those are the kinds of chunks that, and the way that I break seasons down that get me and keep me motivated. So kind of wanted to throw that one out there. So, the Dodgers are in one of those periods to where I'm excited to see how the next week and a half is going to play out. Okay, so like we said, good night last night. Dodgers have a chance to grab some momentum here. So let's talk about some of the things that have been good so far in this season. Okay, so power-wise, I think we know the Dodgers are a good power team. So here is a stat that will show that, or several stats. Okay, the Dodgers are second in isolated power numbers. It's called ISO, and the ISO number is basically if you take out all the elements and you compare it against everybody else and you try to standardize all the ballparks and all the elements and all that, okay, who has the best power and all that? So that's what ISO is in a nutshell. The Dodgers are second in the game of baseball in ISO, which means they are a very, very, very good power team so far. They're also second in the league in at bats per home run. So, they're talking about the fewest amount of bats it takes to hit home runs. They're second in the league to do that. So, I talk about the boom and bust, not relying on home runs. And, I like more of a diverse offense, but the Dodgers, at least if you are going to be that type of offense, they have been at the top of the league and almost, I think you could say elite at hitting home runs per at bat, been elite power team to this point in the season, as evidence that they are second in the major leagues in ISO, second in the major leagues in at bats per home run, and they are number one in walk percentage at 11.6. So that's a big part of the formula for the Dodgers. Draw walks, get guys on base, then hit home runs after you have guys on base, and the Dodgers have absolutely been doing that. So I talk about the process. Hey, the process as far as the typical formula that the Dodgers like to play offense with: draw a lot of walks, grind pitch counts, get into the other team's bullpen, and then hit home runs. The Dodgers have been fantastic at that. They're number one, like I said, in walk percentage at 11.6, and they're second in both ISO and at bats per home runs, and they're fourth. Okay, this might surprise you a little bit. Okay, the Dodgers, believe it or not, although they've kind of been hot and cold, they've actually been very good at scoring runs in the latter half of games. Okay, as a matter of fact, the Dodgers are fourth in the major leagues in runs scored per game in the last 4 innings. Fourth in all the major leagues in runs scored in the last 4 innings. So like I said, hey, one of the big formulas to winning close games is not giving up runs late in games and then scoring runs yourself late in games. Well, the Dodgers have done a good job offensively scoring late in games, as evidenced by their fourth in the major leagues in runs scored per game in the last 4 innings. And they were kind of middle of the pack. So you might ask, well, okay, how do they do as far as not allowing their opponent scoring runs in the last four innings? They're just about middle of the pack. They're not good. They're not bad at that. The bullpen has been, one of those deals that's been hot or cold. They had the 10-inning stretch and then gave up quite a few runs a couple of games ago. So the Dodgers are middle of the pack in the major leagues as far as giving up runs in the last 4 innings. Of games, and then they are fourth in the major leagues as far as scoring those runs themselves in the last 4 innings. So that's a good trade-off. And, hey, if you can obviously continue the fourth yourself and then get the bullpen shored up and then be like fourth, as far as not giving up runs, that's the formula that you're looking for. So, again, talking about the process, I think you need to look at that and you need to go, hey, let's get away from that middle of the pack. Let's get to the top of the line where we should be as the Dodgers as far as not allowing runs late in games, the last 4 innings. And I think you're going to see, if you might have done that so far, you might have already had 2, maybe 3 more wins already. And you might be like a 17 and 11 and 18 and 10, something like that. And everybody would be thinking, wow, this Dodgers team is right where it needs to be at this point. Okay, so some of the things that the Dodgers are just we just talked about, the bullpen and giving up runs in the last 4 innings of the games. They're right in the middle of that. Okay, the Dodgers, believe it or not, they are 8th in the major leagues in runs scored. Okay, and looking at this, as far as 3 at home against the Cardinals, I talked about that earlier. This is a situation to where there's a lot of these numbers that can get, kind of put in the right direction as far as momentum and getting you going to where you want to be. Okay, so some of the things that the Dodgers need to continue to work on, they probably need to get better at. Okay, the Dodgers are 34 points lower than the team average from last year. So, a lot of people will say batting average doesn't matter. It absolutely does, because every time you get a hit, guess what? You get on base. Every time you get a hit, guess what? If there's already somebody on base, they advanced at least 1 base, if not 2. A walk is great, but everybody only advances 1 base in a walk. If you get a base hit, then, you have a chance for a guy to go first to third. You have a chance from a guy to go from second to home. You have, so you have the ability for guys to advance more than 1 base when you get base hits. So batting average absolutely does matter. Last time I checked, as far as your on-base percentage, it went into that. Last time I checked, as far as your OPS, on-base percentage, and slugging, batting average went into all that, because every time you get a base hit, you are also getting on base. So batting average, despite what a lot of people who are slaves to modern day analytics, batting average absolutely still matters, and the Dodgers are 34 points lower than their team average from last year, which is also why they're probably 8th in runs scored, which is lower substantially than they were last year as well. So, I'm not one of those guys. I love modern day analytics. I think that if you watch this channel, I talk about a lot of those new age type stats, and I do like them as far as incorporating them into a game plan for, hey, what needs to happen in the future, that kind of deal. Okay, but having said that, batting average, nobody's ever going to convince me that batting average does not matter. Now, it's part of the formula as far as evaluating offense, but it's certainly, and it's not the whole formula like a lot of people used to. It was like, your batting average, on-base percentage, how many home runs you hit, that kind of thing. There wasn't really a whole lot of advanced analytics. So it's not the whole formula, but it certainly still is a part of it. Okay. The obvious, teams have stolen 86.4 bases. They've stolen at an 86.4 percentage clip against the Dodgers. So the Dodgers have only thrown out, 13.6% of the runners, which you would like to be around, 25% a good catcher would. So, hey, that is, they've got to double that. They've got to get exactly twice as good at that. If they don't, then they have 2 choices, okay? Actually, they have 2 choices right now. Either you get doubly as good at that, which, in my opinion, this is almost all on the pitchers, because they don't hold runners, they're slow to home plate, and the runners get way too big of a jump. So, in my opinion, you have 2 choices here. Okay, you can either make an emphasis to slide step and start holding runners, so runners aren't getting as big of a jump, or on the other side, you as an offense can start stealing the same amount of bases as your opponents to equal it out. Those are your 2 choices. Okay, so who in the Dodgers lineup can steal bases? James Outman, okay, Mookie Betts. Will Smith definitely could steal some bases. I think he could steal, 10 to 15 bases, that kind of deal. I think Jason Hayward could steal some bases. I think if Trace Thompson got on base, he definitely could steal some bases. David Peralta could steal some bases. So, who are the guys that Miguel Vargas could definitely steal some bases? Freddie-Freeman is a really good base runner. I think in the right scenario, he could get a good jump and steal a base. Maxmuncy could from time to time. So your 2 choices at this point, either get a heck of a lot better at holding runners on and reduce the amount of stolen bases that your opponents have against you, or increase the amount of stolen bases that you are getting every day to equal that out. So those are your 2 choices. I think probably the easiest thing to do there is to come up with some combination of those 2. Hey, at least increase the amount of stolen bases you have, and then at least to an extent decrease the amount of stolen bases your opponent does. and then, just kind of make a combo of those two to improve that, because this is not sustainable. You can't keep giving up an 86.4% clip as far as stolen bases. It's just too many free bases that leads to too many easy runs that are going to lead to, you putting yourself behind the eight ball in close games. Hey, you're still going to win the 4 or 5 run games when you hit home runs, but what's going to happen when it's a 1-run game in the 8th inning and the other team has stolen 2 bases from you because, they have 3 or 4 stolen bases that night? Those are the games you're going to lose because of that. And, those are typically, the 1-run games are typically playoff games too. So that's something the Dodgers obviously need to shore up to. The Dodgers are 4th worst in K percentage in the major leagues at 25.5%. We've seen it, and I love James Outman, but he struck out, 4 times in a row in the other game, and they struck out a couple times last night as well. So the K percentage, hey, and like I said, that's kind of a modern day analytics there, in the sense that, not all strikeouts are the same. Some strikeouts, we used to keep a stat called quality at bats, and any at bat that was 7 pitches or more, even if you struck out, didn't matter the result. Every at bat that was 7 pitches or more was considered a quality at bat, because at least you grinded the pitcher. Okay. And so every strikeout's not built the same. I understand the philosophy that hey, if you're going to hit some home runs, you're going to strike out. And in doing so, you're also going to walk, and then you're also going to grind pitchers. And that makes it very tough on the opponent. So, hey, I get all that, but there has to be a good trade-off. Of course, the Dodgers' ISO is good too, so they're 2nd in the league in ISO. So what you kind of want, if you look at that ISO number and strikeout percentage, you want those to be equal. Okay, so if your strikeout percentage is 25.5%, you want your ISO to be 255. So as long as your ISO and strikeout percentages are similar, it's a good trade-off, okay? So the Dodgers need, they either need to keep their ISO up to where they're at, or reduce the strikeout rate. They probably need to reduce that strikeout rate from 25% down to about 20% as a team, because like I said, they are 4th worst in the major leagues in striking out. So reduce that down to maybe 22, I said 20, but maybe 22, 23%, something like that, and then keep your ISO numbers where they're at 2nd in the major leagues, and that's going to be a very good trade-off. Okay, pitching, the Dodgers are 23rd in the major leagues in earned runs against per game. That's not something that we are used to seeing with this Dodgers. They have been absolutely elite from a pitching staff perspective. They've been, 1st in the league in ERA the last 2 years, either 1st or 2nd, seemingly going all the way back to like 2015. I have the exact stats somewhere. I don't know the exact stats, but going back a long ways, the Dodgers have been, if not the best pitching staff in the league, certainly one of the 2 best pitching staffs. So this is not something we're used to seeing, and it's coming from different sources. Julio Urias has had 2 starts in a row that have been rough. Noah Syndergaard's been hot and cold. That 5th spot has given up some runs. And then your bullpen has been leaky as well. So it's not like you can just kind of pinpoint one spot and say, hey, let's fix this, and then we'll be okay. It's kind of been a whole team effort to this point. Talking about that whack-a-mole, I always talk about that as far as, which day and, who's it going to be that day that either struggles or helps the team win. It's kind of been that whack-a-mole situation as far as the Dodgers being 23rd in the major leagues in earned runs against. And because of that, okay, the Dodgers are 23rd in the major leagues in ERA. Boy, that is a number that is just odd to look at. So obviously, you got to get in the top 10 in ERA, okay, and you're middle of the pack as far as giving up runs in the last 4 innings, which you need to get, up to the top of that as well. So those are some of the things that the Dodgers need to improve on. And then obviously Alex Vesia, he's struggling. James Outman, hey, this is his first major league struggle. I love the young man. I think that's obvious if you follow Dodgers Daily. Excited to see how he handles this first bit of adversity that he's had offensively at the major league level. I know his mentality. I'm not worried about it, but I am excited to see how he responds to this first bit of adversity, talking about James Outman. And the bullpen ERA is 5.18. Last year, it was 2.84. So the bullpen has been almost exactly twice as bad this year as it was last year. So you got to shore up the bullpen. Definitely have to do that. That's one thing that has to happen. You have to shore up the stolen bases. You got to shore up, the strikeout percentage. And then, you got to shore up just the overall ERA of it. So those are the things that I see right there. The strikeout percentage, the overall ERA. You got to shore up the bullpen, and you got to reduce the amount of strikeouts you have. If you do that, okay, that's the process. That's what you chew on every day to figure out what do we need to do as far as our early work, as far as our BP, as far as the personnel we're putting out there every day. What do we need to do to fix these situations, but yet continue to be second in ISO in the league, continue to be second in home runs per at-bats? So how can we improve in this area while still maintaining our excellence in the other area? That's the formula the Dodgers are trying to figure out every single day in their process. So, hey, that's our Dodgers talk for today. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it, and let's take a trip down on the farm. It was a rough day yesterday for the AA Tulsa Drillers. They dropped a doubleheader. They got swept in both games, and both games were very close. And it started off good. The Tulsa Drillers scored 1 in the first inning of the first game yesterday. They scored 1 in the fourth. Then they took the lead in the 8th inning. These doubleheaders in the minor leagues are 7-inning games. So Tulsa took a 3-2 lead into the bottom of the 8th inning, but couldn't hold it. Gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th to lose the first game yesterday, 4-3 to the Arkansas Travelers, who are the AA affiliates of the Seattle Mariners. Who you're looking at right here is Riverryan, who had a very good performance yesterday. He went 4 innings. He gave up just 2 hits. He had 5 Ks. His slider was very good. That 4-seam up in the zone, got above the barrels of the Arkansas Travelers hitters. His slider was tight, and his ERA on the year so far, he's been very good. Not just yesterday, he's been very good. His ERA on the year is just 1.35. He went 4 innings yesterday. There's that 4-seam up in the zone. I talked about how it got above the barrels of the Arkansas Travelers hitters. See that hitter right there was able just to hit the bottom of the ball and pop it up. Okay, so 4 innings scoreless yesterday. There's another example of that 4-seam up in the zone, getting above the barrel of the Arkansas Travelers, hitting the bottom of the ball and hitting it weakly, and just hitting a routine fly ball to Johnny DeLuca. 4 innings, and there's that tight slider for Riverryan. 4 innings yesterday, gave up just 2 hits and had 5 strikeouts. There's another tight slider for him. Ryan's ERA again on the year, just 1.35. There's a good look at the young man out of UNC Pembroke, who was a 2A star. He was actually an offensive player, too, for the Padres when the Dodgers went ahead and traded for him, and they traded away Matt Beatty, who I got to see in Oklahoma City the other day playing for the River Cats. So I think you can safely say the Dodgers won that trade, getting Riverryan in return. So Riverryan, another good outing for him yesterday. Well, I tell you what, Jose Ramos, he is absolutely playing like a big-time prospect. Well, he is a big-time prospect, but he is absolutely backing that up and playing like it. Look at this. Here's another opposite field home run. He also added a double yesterday. He is just playing great offensive baseball. We know he has the ridiculous defensive tools, the big-time arm, the big, long, rangy type strides when he runs around in the outfield. So we know he's a great defensive outfielder, and we know that he has a lot of, just flash to his offensive game. He has big power. When he hits a home run, it kind of bounces. I talk about that a lot, like it's coming off of a tennis racket. Kind of has that bounce effect and that majestic moonshot type effect. So we know he's always had that. But how about the oppo power? He's been hitting the ball at the opposite field quite a bit more lately. And I tell you what that does for you. It allows you to get that ball to travel a little deeper, which gets you into more the flat part of your swing versus the lift part of your swing in the front, which means that you're hitting it during your hitting window that you have the best chance to make the most solid contact. Now, if you hit the ball out front, you're going to obviously hit it on the way back up, which means that's where all your home runs are at. But if you let the ball get a little deeper, that's where most of your line drives are at, because that's the part of your swing before you've actually started back up with your swing. And so occasionally, you're going to get a pitch that's elevated, and the way that you do that, if you let it get a little bit deeper, you're not necessarily using the plane of your swing to get the ball in the air. What you're doing is you're using the location of the pitch to get the ball in the air. So if you look at this was a pitch that was about belly button high, a little bit above the belt. And so, this is proof right here that, hey, you can swing flat through the ball, and as long as you match the plane of the pitch by turning that barrel with your top hand, if you get a pitch up in the zone, and that type of flat swing allows you to get to that pitch up in the zone better. Look at this pitch up in the zone, and so he lets the location let him get the ball in the air, and then that's how you get your home runs at that point. And then also, by swinging flat like that and letting the ball get deeper, it's going to make you be more consistent because you're going to have less swing and miss. So right now, Jose Ramos, he has a little bit of it all going on offensively. Andypages, the Dodgers' number 6 prospect, had a good night in the first game for AA Tulsa. Pages had 2 hits, including a base hit in the top of the 10th, to move the go-ahead runner to third, who eventually scored. And like I said, the Dodgers took the lead but could not hold it in the bottom of the 8th inning. There's the mayor of Drillville, Scott Hennessy right there, better known as Henny. There is Andypages. Good bounce-back game for him. He had struggled just a touch. He got just firecracker hot there for a while. Got honors of being player of the week. And then he struggled the last 3 or 4 games. So, hey, good to see Andy. There's Yorbit Vivas, who has been absolutely on fire. Vivas actually had his hit streak. He had hits in every single game of the season. All 15 games had it. I believe it was yesterday that he had that streak stopped, and then he had hit again not yesterday, but 2 days ago, he had that streak stopped, and then yesterday started it again. So, and good look at Yorbit Vivas on the bases. But this is Andypages, who had a good game offensively in the first game yesterday for the Drillers. One way that I can tell that a guy is playing really good offense is that, it seems like I'm talking about him on every single show. I can't remember a show that I've done recently about the AA Drillers where I didn't include it's Imanol, I guess, Imanolvargas. I've heard it Imanolvargas several different times in the past. I've heard it Imanolvargas this year. I've always thought it was Imanolvargas. When I have a chance to talk to him, of course, I have not heard back from the Drillers as far as whether I'm going to get my media passes and access to the players as far as interviewing this year. I emailed about a week and a half ago, have not heard back, so hoping to hear back something here shortly as far as that, so I can have the chance to talk to a couple of these guys and ask them a few questions. But okay, so Imanolvargas, he had another good game collecting 2 hits. Both were hit over 100 miles an hour. So here's the deal about him, man. He has great plate discipline. Like I say, every time I talk about him, he led the Midwest League in on-base percentage last half of 21, all of 2022. His on-base percentage this year is well into the 400s. He knows how to get on base. So he knows how to get on base, and then also when he hits the ball, he hits it very, very, very hard. Okay, his single that you're seeing here, that's 101 miles an hour. And I talk about all the time, one of the big arguments in offensive baseball is, do you want to hit fly balls or do you want to hit ground balls? And what I tell people all the time is, it's neither. Okay, the key to successful offense is just hit the ball hard. If you hit the ball 95 miles an hour or above in professional baseball, you are going to be a 500 hitter. On balls that are hit 95 miles an hour or above, whether that are hit on the ground, okay, the batting average is right around 500 for those. So, hey, just hit the ball hard. If you're a young hitter out there and you have a hitting coach that's telling you, hey, you don't want to hit ground balls, you want to hit fly balls and all that, hey, don't buy into that. What you need to buy into is figure out the best way that you can to hit the ball hard on the most consistent basis. Imanolvargas is the perfect case scenario. That 101 mile an hour ground ball, okay, it gets into the outfield, he gets a base hit for this, and then he had a 111 mile an hour double. So this dude not only does know how to get on base, he knows how to really put a charge behind the baseball, Imanolvargas. In the second game last night, you are seeing emmetsheehan. That is a 99 mile an hour fastball. He was just absolutely electric. emmetsheehan was. His four seam, he struck out the side in his first 3 outs in the first inning of the game last night. And then look at that slider. You're talking about a 99 mile an hour fastball, then a slider that gets under the bat of left-handers. That is just an absolute wipe-out combination. And that four-seam up in the zone is just ridiculous. He is the Dodgers' number 14 prospect. I guarantee you the Dodgers do not have 13 prospects that are better than Emmetsheehan. Look at that fastball, just blow a professional hitter away. I have said it a couple times. I think he and Dustin May have the two most explosive fastballs in the entire organization. I will absolutely stand by that. You know, when you talk about the extension, the way he hides the ball, and then also when you combine that with his velo, it is just and his strikeout numbers will, you know, testify to that. He has 32 strikeouts in 16.2 innings, and, you know, so he's striking out almost, what is that, almost 32 strikeouts in 16.2 innings. That is, what, 2 strikeouts per inning? That would be a strikeout rate of 18 per 9 innings. That's ridiculous. That just goes to show you how explosive that fastball is from the right-handed arm of Emmetsheehan. I always say Sheehan. I'm from Oklahoma. I think that's just kind of my dialect, and that's how it comes out, my accent, if you will. It's actually Emmetsheehan, so I need to correct myself and get that right. I need to do better, so I will start doing better on that name. Sheehan's whip is just 0.77 on the year. His average against is just 145. So there's a good look at the young man out of New York, who went to Boston College. You know, the game last night was really tight, and Trevorbettencourt came in and had a great outing for AA Tulsa. He went 1 1/3 innings. He gave up no runs, and he struck out 2, and he got the drillers out of a big bases-loaded jam. Hey, Bettencourt has been very good. He just kind of moves the ball. You know, he's not one of those 100-mile-an-hour pitchers, but look at that curveball there, that breaking ball. He moves the ball. He locates. He changes speeds. He does it the some people say old school way. I say the right school way. I think there's not an old school or a new school. I think there is a right school, and whenever you're locating, you're changing speeds, and you're moving the ball, off of barrels, I just don't see any way that you can go wrong with that. It just absolutely works, and it has worked so far for Trevorbettencourt, whose ERA on the year is just 2, and yesterday was his 5th scoreless outing in a row. So great job, Trevorbettencourt. The Rancho Won Quakes finished the night off in style with a 6-2 win over the Inland Empire, which is always a good thing because Inland, they are the single-A affiliates of the Angels, so you always like to beat Inland Empire. The Quakes now are 13-6 on the season. We'll get into some of the numbers, but hey, the Quakes, they scored single runs in the 2nd, 3rd, and the 7th, and they put up a crooked number in the 5th as they put up a 3 spot there. The pitching was good for the Quakes last night. The Rancho Won Quakes finished the night off in style, beating Inland Empire 6-2, which is always great because, that's the crosstown rivalry. Inland Empire, they are the single-A affiliates of the Angels, so you always like to beat Inland. And the Quakes, they scored single runs in the 2nd, 3rd, and the 7th. They added a crooked number in the 6th when they put up a 3 spot, and they rode good pitching between Darlinpinales, who you're seeing right here, who had a really good performance last night for the Quakes. He went 4.1 innings. He gave up no earned runs, and he also struck out 6 and walked just 1. Darlinpinales, who you're seeing right here on the screen, big and long, kind of has that slingshot type of delivery to him. And watch him drop the ball right here behind his hip, and because of that, the ball, it kind of goes behind his butt a little bit, if you will, and then he comes back behind his head, after he comes back up, as far as he drops the ball and then comes back up, the ball stays hidden behind his head for quite a while, so it kind of has that invisible ball type appearance to it. So Darlinpinales, another, like I said, a great performance last night. 4 1/3 inning, gave up no earned runs, and he struck out 6 and walked just 1. My man Livanreinoso, I love watching this young man pitch. He went 2 scoreless innings for the Quakes. That's about a 96, 97-mile-an-hour fastball that you're seeing right there. So he's got some juice behind it, no doubt about it. How about this? My man Reinoso has yet to give up a run this year. His average against is just 130, and his whip is 0.79. So, hey, Livanreinoso, man, keep up the great work. I love watching this young man pitch. Okay, I had a chance to talk to this young man, Jonathan Edwards, in the offseason. What a wonderful young man. He's out of the Atlanta area. He went to Georgia Southern out of college. That Georgia Southern program, they hosted a regional last year. They have really come on as a power in college baseball. So good baseball background. He actually threw a no-hitter in high school. And the thing about that no-hitter that was really cool is that the year before, the team that he no-hit, he actually, I don't think he even got out of the first inning. It was like a complete disaster the year before. So it was like sweet revenge that just a year later, he's actually no-hitting the other team. And they actually won that game on a walk-off, a wild pitch, which was very, very exciting. He said the most stressful part was trying to watch that last run come in because he wasn't quite sure if he's going to make it or not. I can't remember the young man's name who scored the run, but he is a college baseball player as well. Okay, so Jonathan Edwards, and actually his dad was, or excuse me, his uncle, Tommy Smith, if you remember, he was in the 1968 Olympics and won some medals in the 1968 Olympics. So that is his uncle, Tommy Smith. So he has great bloodlines, and I asked him about that when we had our conversation. He said, hey, one really cool thing about that, I don't have a real total personal relationship with him. I don't know him all that well, but when I was in middle school, I did a report on him and his Olympic career, so I thought that was really cool that Jonathan Edwards did a report on his uncle, Tommy Smith, who was the Olympian in the 1968 Olympics. You're seeing him on the screen right here, and what you are seeing, yes, you are seeing a 98-mile-an-hour fastball and that good slider right there. The thing about him, just got to get it harnessed, man. I mean, the control is the whole game for him. When he's throwing strikes, he's doing that right there. He's very, very hard to hit because he's 98. He's long. His extension's good. It's a really, really, really live arm. So, hey, man, he's just got to harness the strike zone. Simply put, when he throws that pitch, you just saw that four seam in the zone. See, that's and he pulls the next one out of the zone. But when he throws that four seam right there in the zone, look, that's a professional hitter that is used to seeing a lot of velo that can't catch up to it. This man, Jonathan Edwards, live arm, lots and lots and lots of potential. He was 97, 98 last night. And the thing that I really enjoyed about last night's performance, I apologize for the bit of herky-jerkiness to this video, but you could see as his performance went on, he got a lot of rhythm. He got into a rhythm, and then you could just see his confidence build. And then once his confidence built, man, he started releasing that ball with conviction. And the next thing you know, it was coming out 98 miles an hour for the young man out of Atlanta, Georgia Southern, Jonathan Edwards. Keep your eye on him. It was one hell of a night for Nick Biddison, the fourth-round draft pick from last summer's draft out of Virginia Tech. Him and Carson Taylor, both Virginia Tech alums in the system right now. There is a good look at Nick. Boy, he did a great job last night, and you're going to see here in a minute, he actually ended the game in the top of the ninth inning, or the bottom of the ninth inning, I should say. The Quakes right here. Watch this. Watch this catch. Fantastic catch. Look at that. Great job, Nick Biddison. What a night he had. He had 2 hits. He had 2 RBIs. And like I said, he made that sweet catch right there to end the game. And he has now hit safely in his last 3 games, Nick Biddison. Kelvinbautista filled up the strike zone. How about this? And he did it with multiple pitches. You just saw his slider. Hey, that's one of the 2 balls that he threw all night long. He threw just 11 pitches to get his 3 outs. There is Chris Newell. I love that young man out of Virginia. He has just a great hit tool, and he's a great base stealer. He's the type of offensive player I'm so excited about in this system. Look at that Jose Izada. He is such a slick fielding infielder. I love watching him use the leather. Okay, so back to Chris Newell. He is an elite base stealer, and then he also has a lot of power. He's that combination that the Dodgers, I think, need. They need the guy that can hit for average power and also steal bases. Chris Newell's that guy that you just saw in center field a minute ago. But back to Kelvinbautista. Okay, he just needed 11 pitches. 9 of them were strikes. How about that for efficiency for Kelvinbautista? And Bautista has allowed a run only in 1 of his 5 outings this year, and he has 8 strikeouts in 6.1 innings. So good job, Kelvinbautista. So there you go. There's the action from yesterday. Of course, anytime the Los Angeles Dodgers win at the top, it's always a successful day. So that's a great thing. Tulsa, they had a frustrating day. 2 great games, lost 2 very close games, 1 in extra innings. And then, the Rancho Won Quakes, they finished the night off in style. Don't forget that the Great Lakes Loons, they have a double header today. Oklahoma City will be back in action as well today, and they have a doubleheader tomorrow to make up for the game that they lost last night. Okay, so that's our show for today. But before we get out of here, one more reminder, if you'd like to help Dodgers Daily continue growing by donating, we have a link in the description. Just click that link and it'll take you right to where you need to go to help Dodgers Daily continue to grow by donating. Also, if you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily, become a subscriber, and after you subscribe, click that notification bell. That way, every time Dodgers Daily release a new video, you'll be notified. You won't miss a thing from Dodgers Daily, and Dodgers Daily can keep growing and keep doing what we love to do, which is providing videos like this in the future. As always, thanks for tuning in, and go Dodgers.